in the OLTP systems will not have a historical data, and the data in the OLTP systems is completely normalized. Data in the OLTP systems. So the normalization is nothing but the process of organizing the data into the tables, or process of distributing the data into a tables is called as a normalization. So all these OLTP systems are normalized up to third normal form. All these OLTP systems are normalized up to third normal form. The more you normalize the data, more number of tables will be present in the system. More you normalize, more number of tables will be present in the system. So when you have a more number of tables, so to analyze the data it becomes complex, because you need to use a complex joins. So analyzing of the data is nothing but the retrieving of the data, right, or reading of the data from the database. So when you are reading, you have to make a complex join. You have to make a complex joins to the complex joins through the queries. So the OLTP system also does not, it is not useful for an analysis purpose. So that is the reason now we are bringing up we are building a data warehouse. By extracting the data from OLTP system, and then building the data warehouse. So the process of building the process of collecting the data from OLTP systems and then loading the data into the data warehouse is called as an ETL process. ETL process. So the ETL stands for a extract, transform, and then load. So let me just give you a simple paint diagram on how the data warehousing architecture looks like, and what is the role of ETL tester, and what kind of testing that we are going to do it. So let's say we have different OLTP systems which are developed in the different applications. So we have a data which is available in the flat files. We have the data which is available in the different systems like Oracle and other systems like mainframes and DB2. So you have a different OLTP systems, and this is a flat file data. What you have, flat file data. So you have OLTP data which is being distributed across the multiple systems. So now what we are going to do is that we are going to integrate the data. We are going to integrate the data from all these different sources. Whatever we have. Integration is nothing but the collecting the data and then loading it. So collection of data from this systems and then loading it to this. So this is called as an ETL process. So you are going to extract the data from all these OLTP systems and then finally load it into the data warehouse. So this process is called as an ETL process. So when we talk about the ETL stands for extract, transform, and then load. So extraction is nothing but the extraction, transformation, and then load. So extraction is nothing but the reading of the data from the database. So reading of the data from whatever the OLTP systems. And the transformation is nothing but the transforming of the data, it's like modifying the data. So transformation is nothing but the modifying the data, and so you'll apply a lot of business rules here, and then the load. So the load is nothing but the inserting of the data, so which is a DML operation. So to do all these ETL process, we have a lot of ETL tools which are available in the market. So we have a Power Center, Informatica Power Center, which is an ETL tool, to integrate the data from the OLTP systems, and Informatica Power Center, and we have different other tools like Data Stage, Ab initio. All these are all the different ETL tools which are used to integrate the data from OLTP systems. So once the data is loaded into the data warehouse, it is going to be analyzed. The reports will be generated from the data warehouse, reports will be generated from the data warehouse with the help of OLAP tools or the business intelligence tools. We have so many business intelligence tools. The process of generating the reports is called as your BI process. And the process of generating the reports is your you have different reporting tools like OBIEE, business objects, and you have Cognos. So these are all the different reporting tools which are available in the market, which are used to generate the BI process. Generate the reports. Now the data warehouse is a combination of ETL process and then the BI process. Now the combination of ETL process and then the BI process. So now here we understand what is a data warehouse. Now what is the job of an ETL tester? So you have an ETL process and you have the BI process. So what is the job of an ETL tester is that whatever the data that is being integrated from the OLTP systems into the data warehouse, as an ETL tester, you have to validate the data between the databases, whatever is being integrated from these OLTP systems into the data warehouse. So these are all the databases, and data warehouse is also a database. So how are you going to validate the data? With the help of a SQL. So ETL testing is a completely manual testing process. And you are going to validate the data between the tables. You are going to validate the data between the tables with the help of a SQL. So that's why in the ETL testing, SQL plays a major role. In using it. So completely together in the nowadays, so you will also hear the term as a data warehousing testing. So the data warehousing testing is nothing new. So it is nothing but the combination of ETL testing plus the BI testing. So we will see about both the ways, all the ways like how the BI testing will be done and how the ETL testing will be done, both the things we will see in the course. So first we will concentrate on the ETL testing aspects, like how the ETL testing will be done, and then later on and in the last couple of classes we will talk about the BI testing, how the BI testing. So BI testing is more like a UI testing, user interface testing. Generally when we test the enterprise applications, we will apply the different fields and then test it and then see whether it is working or not. So likewise, so the BI testing also we will see. So the together data warehousing, end-to-end testing of the data warehouse is called as a data warehousing testing. So which is a combination of ETL testing and the BI testing. So in the ETL testing, again, as we have discussed during our demo classes, so with ETL testing, we will perform a lot of different types of testing, and we'll perform different types of testing. So let's take an example, and I'll give you an overview how the ETL testing works and what kind of testing we will do it before we discuss about the complete architecture of the data warehouse. Let's say you have so now assume that you have a table called as a which is, assume that there is a table called as a employee table, which is in the Oracle database, and in the warehouse you have something called as a ODS_employee or stage_employee table. Now your ETL developer has developed the program, so called as an ETL program. For a time being, we'll call it as an ETL program. So that might be in any tool. It might be in Informatica, it might be in Data Stage, or it might be in OWB, or it might be in Ab initio. Any ETL tool they can use in the ETL testing. So if Informatica is a widely used tool, so we'll talk about Informatica, how the Informatica is used for this. So now your developer, what the developer has done, so They are extracting the data from employee table and assume that they are transforming the data by using some transformation and then loading the data. So how the data is flowing? You are reading the data from employee table and you are transforming the data. Transforming just like modifying the data. So assume that employee table contain the different columns like employee ID, first name, last name, and date hired and all those things. So let's say we have different columns, employee ID. You have in this, you have a first name, last name, first name, last name, and date hired, and you also have some other thing called as a job code or something. Just assume that. So these are all the columns which you have in the employee table. And in my target table, I have only the employee ID, name, and then the date hired. Employee ID, name, and then the date hired column. Date hired column. So now you are reading the data from employee table. So this is your employee table, and your requirement is that you have to concatenate the first name and last name. You have to combine the first name and last name as a full name. You have to load it. So I'm giving you the simple example how it will be. Assume that there is a transformation. This is a transformation called as expression transformation, which will concatenate both the names. So this is a program they have developed and the data is being loaded. So this is a ETL program, how the data is flowing from the employee. So this table is coming from your OLTP system and you are loading the data into OLAP system. So ETL program might contain the different transformations, different source tables, different target tables. So this is your data flow. So this is your complete data flow, how actually the data is moving from the source to the target. Now this kind of a programs will be developed by your ETL developers. This kind of programs will be developed by your ETL developers. Now, as an ETL tester, what you have to do, you have to validate the data between the employee table and then the stage underscore employee table. You have to validate the data. So what kind of testing will be done? How many types of testing will be done? That we will see. So first we'll concentrate mostly on the ETL testing part, then we'll go to the BI testing. What and all will be done in the BI testing as well. So when we talk about the ETL testing aspects, so there are different types of testing which will be done in the ETL testing process. So we have various types of testing. So we will have smoke testing and functional testing, regression testing, all these kind of different things will be done. Functional testing, and you have system testing, performance testing, all these things will be done on this thing. So when we talk about the smoke testing and all these things, I'll just also share with you the test cases and the complete material how we are going to proceed with this. How we are going to proceed. So if you take a look at the sample test cases, so how we are going to how we are going to perform the ETL testing. So I'm going to give you all these things. So we'll have a different smoke test cases, how we are going to perform the smoke testing, and at the same time we'll have a functional testing, and we'll have a system testing, performance testing, and then the regression testing. So all these type of a testing will be done using it. So when we talk about the smoke testing, what kind of things you will do it. So in the smoke testing process, what you do is that we are going to identify whether the target table is created in the database, and whatever the program that you have created. Let's say all the ETL programs in Informatica are called as a mappings. We call them as a mappings. So in the smoke testing, what you are going to do is that you will verify whether the table is present, verify that whether the target table. So what is your target table? Your target table is stage underscore employee. is present in the target database or not. So what is your target database? Your source database is a OLTP system and your target database is a OLAP system. So stage_employee is present in the database or not. So you're going to verify whether the table is present or not by using a query. So what is a query? To identify the table, so that we will see in detail how to verify. So we'll take one by one example and then we will understand that. And similarly, you're also going to validate or verify. You're also going to validate or verify the programs present in the UAT environment or not. So when we talk about the programs, we'll talk about mappings, and there are other type of things, sessions, and then the workflows. I'll tell you, we need not to worry much at this early stage, what is a mapping, what is a session. So within 2 days, you'll get comfort with all the complete tool and how we are going to do it. So you'll verify the programs whether they are present or not, and you're also going to verify whether the data is present in the target table or not, whether a data is present in the target table or not. So all these kind of target table or not. So all these kind of different types of smoke testing will be done on the smoke testing will be done here. And similarly, when we talk about the functional testing aspects, so in the functional testing, so you're going to validate the data model. So data model validation. So what is a data model? Data model is nothing but a pictorial representation of tables and the columns is called as a data model. So I'll show you the sample data models, how a data model looks like and what kind of validation you have to do it. So data model validation, and you'll also check the count validation. So count validation. Now we understand that we are extracting the data from employee table and then loading the data into stage_employee table. I need to be sure that my program is not discarding any data. My program is not discarding any data, and the number of records present in the employee table should be same as stg_employee table. So I'm going to validate this. So whenever you're validating any kind of validations in the functional testing or in the smoke testing, you're completely going to use the SQL queries. So SQL queries plays a major role. So by validating the count, so how do you validate it? So I'll get the count from the OLTP system table, and I'll also get the count from the OLAP system table, and then I'll verify whether the count is matching between the OLTP and the OLAP. So that is how you do the count validation, and this will be completely done by the SQL process itself. You're going to use a SQL. To validate it. And similarly, suppose let's say when you're loading the data, your program might have resulted in loading the duplicate records. So when we load the duplicate records, so when the program has loaded a duplicate, so we need to also understand whether the duplicates are present in the OLAP system, or duplicate are present in your target table, that you have to verify. By using a query. So you'll write a query to verify the duplicates present in the target table. And similarly, you're also going to validate the data validation. Data validation between your columns. Now you have seen that employee ID column is going to the employee ID column, first name and last name, which is a concatenated one, is going into the name column, and then the date hide is going to the date hide column. So you need to validate the data across all the columns. So data validation will be generally done by the minus query. Minus query is one of the set operator query which is used to perform the data validation between the source and the target. So this is how we'll perform various types of validations and different types of test cases for in the functional testing, how it looks like and what kind of test cases you have to write for different sources. All those things will be shared with you. So I have a lot of materials which I have to share with you before we start with the ETL testing, complete ETL testing process. And similarly, in the system testing also, we will validate the different types of, so whenever data is loaded, so what they do is the ETL programmers, they will actually configure an email task which will notify them saying that data load is completed. So you have to verify whether that email task is working fine or not, or some kind of a small task validation will be there in the system testing. So in the system testing, you're going to validate the different types of email task validation and the file archival process. Suppose, let's say you have a ETL program which is generating the file, and that file they're sending to the customer, and at the same time they're archiving that file. So whether the archive process is working fine or not, so all those things will be validated as part of the system testing as well. So system testing also, we will see how we are going to do that. So likewise, we'll perform a different types of testing. So this is just an introduction about how the testing, ETL testing will be carried out by using the SQLs. So when you are performing the ETL testing process, you'll use a different tools. So SQL Developer is a main tool that we are going to use because by using the SQL Developer, we'll communicate with the source system, we'll fire queries in the target system, and we will compare the results. So what are all the tools that we use in the ETL testing process? In SQL Developer and the ETL tool. So there should be one ETL tool such as Informatica Power Center. So we will talk about the Informatica Power Center look and feel, how it looks, and what are the things that as an ETL tester you have to understand. For this, we will share the VM virtual machine, which you can copy it, which will be around 14 GB, which you can copy it, and once you copy it, we'll verify the setup and everything. Okay, so now you have the Informatica Power Center, and also we'll get a look and feel about the OBIE, but we may not be able to install the OBIE as it is a huge software, and we will actually show the things, how the things will work in the OBIE, and we will provide you the recordings how the OBIE things will be used. And apart from this, we will share all the kind of artifacts like your how the test plan will be generated, and how the test strategy will be defined for a ETL testing project. And also we will also talk about the ETL testing project, and we'll also talk about the various test cases that are being written, and how to, with different data models, how we have to validate, and different types of testing. On the interview questions, how the interview questions will be, and different other documentation, everything will be shared with you. So how we are going to drive it, all these things will be discussed as per ETL testing process. And also the OBIE testing, what kind of different test cases that we write in the OBIE, and what are all the different things that you have to validate. So again, the BI tools are different. So you can, there will be various things, but in our course for complete data warehousing testing, we will talk about the Informatica Power Center, and then the OBIE as two different data warehousing tools we will talk about. And this is how we are going to frame our course. And first, the ETL testing process itself will take about 15 hours. And we will talk about the introduction about the data warehouse. And before this, we will talk about the introduction of the data warehouse. And we will talk about the dimension modeling or the data model. So how do you understand the data model, and what are all the different data modeling concepts which we will understand, and what are all the different types of tables which will be there for 3 hours. So this will discuss for 3 hours. And later on in the OBIE testing, so OBIE, so which will be discussed for OBIE testing, which will be discussed for 2 hours. And before this, like we already spent some amount of time for SQL. So the people who have joined, so we will take the extra classes for you guys on the SQL itself. So SQL, so we have another 5 to 7 hours we have to spend on the SQL, how we write it. So this is how we are going to plan our course and then complete from today. Okay. So this is what the introduction about the ETL testing and the BI testing and also about the data warehousing testing. So if anybody has any questions, so we can go ahead now, and next we will understand about the data warehousing architecture as part of the curriculum. So data warehouse architecture we will discuss. Yeah. Go ahead with your question if anyone has any questions so far.
Whatever this OBIE testing, what is this OBIE?
OBIE is a reporting tool. Like here, once we are actually loading the data from OLTP to data warehouse. Now the data is present in the database in the form of tables. Okay. So how the business users will analyze the data with the help of our reporting tools. Okay. So they will retrieve the data from the data warehouse and they will analyze the data, like how the data warehouse, how the revenue is being generated, or how the profit, how much profit they are making, and all those things. They will generate the reports from it. So your reports will be in the form of tabular format and all those things. So we have again the different reporting tools which are available. Okay. So data warehousing, it is also one of the part. So when they generate the reports, as a BI tester, as a data warehousing tester, what you have to do, whatever the data is present in the data warehouse is properly represented in the report or not, or is there any mismatch of the data that is being represented in the data warehouse to the report. If we do have such kind of scenarios, as a BI tester, you have to validate it.
Okay. And one more question, ETL testing, you said it is manual, right? Manual testing completely. Then where are we using Informatica?
Yeah. So Informatica is not a testing tool. It's actually Informatica is an integration tool. Okay. So here, when we are talking about the ETL process, so we are developing a programs. That did I tell you, like ETL developers will develop the programs. These programs will be developed in the ETL, that is in the Informatica. So ETL developers will use Informatica Power Center, and they will develop all these programs. So whatever the programs that are developed in Informatica, we have to understand, right? So we have to understand what kind of programs that they have done. So by understanding those programs, we use an SQL and then validate the data. So SQL is only the language that we are going to use it to validate the data, and we don't have any automation tools as of now which are very popular. We have some automation tools in the ETL projects also, like a query search, Informatica data validation option, but nowhere the people are used it. They are not so popular. They are not so popular which are used for ETL automation testing. So that is not useful much. So here we will completely use the SQL to validate the data.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions from anybody, please? So before stepping out. Okay. So I assume that we don't have any questions, and then I will give you the architecture of the data warehouse. So now we have talked about what is a data warehouse and how the data warehouse is actually built with the help of our different tools, and we will talk about how the data warehousing architecture looks like, and what is a data warehouse and how the data warehousing architecture looks like. I'll be sharing these PPTs with you for your information. Like you don't need very deep in understanding about how the data warehousing concepts are being used and all those things. These are all the standard definitions, and let's quickly concentrate on the architecture. Tomorrow we'll discuss about the architecture, and we have seen about the different things. So the data warehouse, a standard definition is called as a subject oriented, integrated time variant and non-volatile system, which is used for a decision making process. So why the data warehouse is used for a decision making process? So the data warehousing data, whatever is available, so they are going to generate the report and understand that how their business is performing, and based on that they will actually take the decisions. That's why the data warehouse is called as a decision support system, or DSS. We call it as a DSS. So we talked about the data warehouse, and in the data warehouse is also called as an integrated system. Why we call it as an integrated? Because we are going to integrate the data from different sources, flat file sources, relational sources, and then the different other sources. We are integrating the data from different sources. That's why this is called as an integrated system. Data warehouse is called as an integrated system. And main thing is about the data warehouse is also called as a subject-oriented system. So why we call the data warehouse as a subject-oriented system? When you talk about the subject-oriented system, in the data warehouse, the data is categorized according to the subject area. So when I say subject area in the data warehousing terms, it is nothing but a department in your organization. So in an organization, you'll have a multiple departments, right? You'll have a sales, you'll have a marketing, you'll have a finance, and all those things. So in the data warehouse, the data is categorized according to the subject area. That means we will design, or we will use the separate tables to store the sales related data. We will use the separate tables to store the marketing related data. We will use the separate tables to store the finance related data. So that's why we call the data warehousing system as a subject oriented system. And this is also an integrated system. And when it comes to the data warehouse, a data warehouse is also called as a time variant system. Why we call it as a time variant system? In the data warehouse, data is historical in nature. And historical data will be present in the data warehouse. That's why the data warehouse is called as a time variant. Time variant in the sense, we'll have a data for all the time periods. So you can access the data for at any point of time. You want to access the data for 2012, 2013. Any historical data can be tracked from these things. Any historical data can be tracked by you from the data warehouse. That's why it is called as a time variant system. And also this is called as a non-volatile system. Data warehouse is called as a non-volatile. When we say the non-volatile, volatile means which frequently changes. Non-volatile means which does not changes very frequently. So once you load the data into the data warehouse, you're not going to modify, or you're not going to update, or you're not going to delete. Delete it. So the data will not be removed from the data warehouse, and the data, whatever is in the data warehouse, is completely used for a read operation. Means you'll read the data from data warehouse and then show the data in the form of reports. But you're not going to remove the data. That's why these are all the 4 standard characteristics which are given to the data warehouse. It is called as a subject-oriented, integrated, time variant, and then the non-volatile system. So this is a standard definition which is given to the data warehousing system. So the data warehouse is called as this. So we understand that we are building a data warehouse, but we should understand what are the uses of the data warehouse and what kind of analysis will be carried out. And we are bringing up the data from OLTP and then loading into the data warehouse. From the data warehouse, they are generating the reports. So what is the use of generating the reports, right? So we need to understand what is the use of generating the reports. So when we talk about the use of generating the reports, so we have, let's take a simple example and then try and understand what is the use of actual data warehouse. What is the use of actual data warehouse, and why do the business people will generate the reports from it for this. So your data warehouse will answer a lot of business queries, So when we talk about the lot of business queries, so they actually suppose let's take a practical example one by one and understand how the data warehouse will help business users in each domain. So let's say you, let's talk about the Apple company, and so all the sales distribution managers of Apple want to identify, if they have to identify how much revenue that they have generated, from New York, how much revenue that they have generated from other regions, and if they have to identify, so this question can be answered by your data warehouse. So your data warehouse will answer the question in that way: how much revenue they have generated in 2010, 2011, 2012, this quarter, last quarter, previous quarter. Any kind of a data can be derived once the data is being stored. So they can easily analyze the data sales distribution according to the region wise. And also, let's say your Apple is selling so many products, and out of this, there might not be some products which are not doing better. It means, like, if you talk about Apple 4S and then the 5C or something, or 5C and 5S, there will be something which is not doing better. So when we compare the quantity of the products which you have sold, so it will be less. So if the product is analyzed why the product is not doing good, and they can come up with a better solution or a better future product which will help them to improve their business. If they have to identify what are the slow moving products, then they can easily identify. And the Apple might be selling the products through the various sales agents, like Walmart will sell it, Target will sell it, and you have eBay, Amazon, everybody will sell the Apple products. But as an Apple manager, I want to know who is actually promoting my product better and which sales agent is actually doing better, so that I can provide him the offers, encouraging offers, and which helps me to improve their business. So that kind of things can also be analyzed and then promoted. And let's say you are actually your client is a telecom client, and you're using the postpaid connection, and so you are a defaulter. So so in order to identify the defaulters profile, which the customer is not paying, and all those things can be easily identified: who is the defaulter and how many months that he has not, the customer has not paid the bills, and all those things can be identified from the data warehouse. And at the same time, you'll have millions and millions of customers, and out of the millions of customers, who is actually making me the profit? Who is my profitable customer? So that I can provide them the offers which helps me to improve their business. And also how the revenue has improved over the 5 years. How did we improve from month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year, and all those things. So in the marketing level, like in the marketing era, if you want to identify which are the channels that are costing you less, and by paying less, and which you're not, which is a media which is effective in marketing. So whether it is a TV, or it is a social media, or it is online media, or anything. So where can I actually promote my products better? So that you have to identify. And the main important thing why the data warehousing analyzation is called as a business intelligence is because based upon the historical data what is present in the data warehouse, you can actually forecast your future, what is going to happen. And that's why the data warehouse is like an artificial intelligence. So you are going to plan your budget, you are going to plan how you are going to run your business in the next year or so. And it helps you to plan your budget, it helps you to plan your business, how much I can actually spend for sales, how much I can spend for a production, how many products I actually can produce. All these kind of analysis also can be done. So you are able to forecast the data. So this is something called as a predictive. So you are going to predict your future by analyzing the data by using this. And now, when we talk about the other things, like in the financial industry, if you have to identify how the currency risk, interest rate risk, liquidity risk, how it is going to be, all these kind of questions will be answered by your warehouse. So since this can answer these kind of a lot of questions, so that's why they are building the data warehouse. And as an ETL tester, our job is that we just have to validate whatever the data that is present into the data warehouse is correct or not, and whatever the data that is being represented in the report is as per the requirement or not, that we have to validate. But why we are learning all these things is just for your information. If somebody asks you, so you need to know why the system is actually being developed, right? So you need to know why the system is being developed and how does it actually help the business user. So your business user, how the business user is going to use, and what is the benefit that is getting out of the system that you have developed and you are testing it. So this is something like a domain specific information what I'm trying to give you. And in the data warehouse, we cannot actually categorize the projects as a domain specific that you do in the ETL test, general testing process. But here we call them as which subject area you're actually working on. Whether you're working on a sales, or you're working on a marketing, or you're working on a finance level subject area, and all those things we will use. And to do all these analysis, you can ask the question saying that why can't we use this OLTP system? Why are we bringing entire data from here to data warehouse and then generating the reports? So why can't we do this by using a OLTP system? So if you are generating the reports from your OLTP systems, your transactions will go slow down. Suppose, let's say, a customer is actually booking the order on the eBay and you are generating the reports also on the same thing. What happens? Your transaction might take a longer time. It will slow down the performance of the OLTP system. So that's why we don't use the OLTP system for transactional system for analysis purpose, and that's why we are building a separate system called as a data warehouse. And when we load the data into the data warehouse, we are not going to load the data directly into the data warehouse. We are going to do some kind of a massaging and modifying the data, and then lot of changes will be done, and the data will be loaded to the data warehouse in the stages, in the phases. So what kind of phases are available in the data warehouse, and what kind of phases are available in the data warehouse, and how we are going to load the data into the data warehouse. This thing, we will talk about this tomorrow. How can we, what is the architecture of the data warehouse? What is the architecture of the data warehouse? So, and also the few terms we have to understand. So when you go to the data warehousing project as a tester, so you need to understand the few terms. If they say what is data model, what is the data model is all about, what is the normalization, what is the staging area, and what is the ODS area, all these things, we will discuss this tomorrow. We'll discuss this tomorrow, and then we will move on with the dimension modeling. So tomorrow we'll discuss about the architecture and what are the components in the data warehousing project that you come across. So that this thing we will discuss. And I'll share all the PPTs. I'll send you through the mails, and the people who have joined, for you, we'll actually also take care of your installations, about your Informatica, how you have to learn it and how you have to use it and all those things. We will help you with it, right? So that's it I have for today.